Lawrence Neal here, and welcome back to highintensitybusiness.com. This is episode 302. And the topic of this episode is in part struggle. I've had a lot of guests on the podcast talking about solutions, hope, things we can do that we could do in 2020 to pivot and adapt to the COVID-19 and the impacts it had on business. And so I wanted to reach out, I guess, to more people to get their perspective on how they've dealt with the challenges of 2020. I've always focused on the positives, as I said. But in this podcast, I've got a guest who's had a lot of challenges, just like many of you, and is talking about how he's wrestled with those challenges, overcome some of those. And I'm really excited to learn more. Today's guest is Steve Mckinney. Steve has been in the fitness industry for nearly 30 years. He is the owner of Fitness and More Incorporated and is a first-class certified personal fitness trainer. In 1990, he won the Mr. Southern Illinois bodybuilding title and was a top 5 finisher in the Mr. Midwest competition in 1987. He is the innovator of the 3W system of fitness and has personally supervised over 4,000 workouts per year for the past 20 plus years. Puts me to shame. Steve specializes in private one-to-one high-intensity training sessions. Steve currently holds a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Kyle Watson. He's also won a silver medal at the IBJJF Pan Ams on 2 separate occasions. Steve, it's an honor. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, my pleasure, Lawrence. It's awesome to be here.
Great to have you. Thanks for doing this. Really excited to learn more about you and your story, and especially, I guess, what you've been through in 2020. Obviously, we're in 2021 now, so turning over a new leaf and hoping for a very different year, I'm sure. Before we get into that, I'd love to just learn about your business. Do you want to just give the audience a feel for your business, your session length, your style of training, things like that?
Sure. So what I did was years ago, I'll just kind of go back to the beginning. There was a gym that I trained at, and the gym closed. And so I thought, I'm just going to open a gym in my garage in the back of my home. Now, it's quite interesting because I lived in a place which was somewhat hoodish, just to be honest with you. So it wasn't the best area. So I started off with just having monthly memberships, and I had about 50 people going in and out of my garage for a year or two, and then all of a sudden people would ask me, "Hey, what do I do about this?" So I'm writing programs and I'm doing all this. Now this was a real long time ago. This was 30 years ago. So I started looking at it. I'm like, I think this would be a better fit if I started doing one-to-one private training. And so it was kind of like I was a trainer before being a trainer was the thing to do. And so I bought something in the back of a Muscle and Fitness magazine for $5 on how to be a personal trainer. So that's where it started from. And then from there, huge HIT guy, loved Darden's work. And I did a lot of research on that. And then I would just start training people, just with a high intensity fashion, kind of the way that I was training, but I kind of leaned more toward the Mensa approach, body parts and different things like that. But anyway, started that program with people. And then from there, it just continued to develop. And so I do the one-to-one private high-intensity training sessions, and my session length is 15 to 17 minutes for most of my clients. And then I track results, I set up diets, and the whole 9 yards with that. And so it's been just incredibly, it's been incredibly, I guess you would say, over a long period of time, successful. Because it's maintained maintained its attractiveness to people over a long period of time. And I've been through the the housing crash, and we made it through that. I mean, we've taken hits, but we've made it through. And so that's kind of my approach, and it has been my approach for many, many years. So that's kind of the overview of what we do there.
I love that. Let me ask you a little bit more about your business. What tools are you using? What equipment do you have?
Old school Nautilus. I have a Nautilus
Oh
double
yeah.
chest. I have a clamshell. I have a Nautilus pullover. I have a Nautilus double shoulder. So those are my mainstays. And then I have, I have a Nautilus. A 2ST seated leg curl. And then I obviously have a few other pieces of equipment. I have just kind of a leg press that I've had for years and a seated row that I've had for years. But I also added a 1 rep gym, and that is you had a guy on here you did an interview with him. I think his name was Rob, and he had the Vive, and
Yeah,
it
that was
was
Brian. Brian Murray. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, Brian Murray, that's right. And so anyway, I bought something similar to that years ago. Um, and it's the 1 rep gym. It's a time static contraction unit, basically, or isometric unit. And so I incorporate that into my routines. And the beauty of those particular pieces of equipment is that when I have people who are injured, and my market is more 35 plus, I'm going to be, gosh, I even hate saying this, but I'm going to be 60 in a month. And so,
Wow. That is
yeah, it's crazy.
unbelievable. I
I'm
was
like,
going
how does,
to let me just
go ahead.
cut you off a second. I was going
Sure.
to ask you that. I thought I can't ask this guy's age live on the podcast. That's going to come across really rude. But you don't look anywhere near that. Like I say that to so many of the guests I have on the show because it's a real testament to living a healthy lifestyle.
Hey, man, I'll tell you what, it really is amazing to me because I'm like going, how did I get to be 60? How did that happen? But I still do a ton of stuff. I still train hard. I feel really good. I'm, very happy, and so I still train jujitsu. I still lift several times a week. So yeah, I love it. I'm super happy about that. So, but thank you very much for that. So, um, but yeah, and it does. The system works. It's just following it. Just following the system is the key. I don't know what we were talking about when you
Yeah,
asked me
no,
that
I
question.
apologize. So
That's okay.
you were saying about your target market age, and then you were
Okay,
saying
so
about
yeah,
how
so I'm
that's
I'm
relevant to your tools. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm working with people 35 and up, and so generally, here's what you're going to get a lot of and I don't know if you're dealing with this in your business, but here's what I'm dealing with. Um, Mostly the target market, you're going to find women are going to buy a little bit more than men. It's hard to get men to come in. So I'd say I'm probably 70-30 on that. And then most of the women that you're dealing with are going to be a bit overweight, probably type 2 diabetic. So you're looking, or pre-diabetic anyway. So you look, and then knee problems and shoulder problems. And so you begin to see this particular trend that goes through. So the beauty of like the 1 rep gym or the isometric kind of measuring device is that I can begin to get a person in a range of motion that doesn't cause any joint pain and begin to build strength in that range of motion and then increase that strength throughout those different ranges of motion. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So that is one thing in some of the tools that I use. And a lot of times, I just had a client that started with me last week, really a nice lady, and we only started on time static contraction only. And the reason I did that is because she has a lot of anxiety when it comes to the gym. And it was just, I wanted to make it as gentle for her in the beginning. And, I wanted to make it a positive experience for her in the beginning. And then I'll add dynamic movements after I get her to a certain point with her strength levels. And so, and I do that with a lot of clients. And some clients, they have particular joint problems, and so I'll use those units throughout their workout career. So that just so I can I can keep building strength with them and kind of go from there. But that's kind of the tools that I use, and I also have a Frank Zane leg blaster. Are you familiar with those?
I've seen Doug Holland's version, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I love those. So they're really good for squats. without hurting your low back and without hurting your knees. So I can take a lot of clients and teach them how to use that particular device, and it's super helpful. So everything that I have is to save on joints and to increase muscular strength, and doing it in a safe fashion.
Do you have any Med-X at all?
I do not. I don't have any Med-X. I would love to get Med-X. It's just finding the piece. And then right now with just obviously the change in business, things change. Do you have Med-X, correct?
I do. I mean, look, I love and I'm fascinated by all the pieces you just described in your place. But we have one hammer strength piece, but then the rest is all Med-X. But I'm not married to Med-X completely. I'm very open to, any machine, any brand. Obviously, I have an affinity for the high intensity training orientated brands, but but that's what we have currently. But I'm always open to learning about other pieces. It's just so hard to get them in Ireland, and we have to often either look at, the ones we've got now we shipped in from Canada for a friend, Craig Huber, who's a business owner out in Montreal. And but in terms of like looking at additional pieces, trying to source from Europe is challenging, especially on the secondary market, because it's just you don't have is it Bill Casto, who is a go-to for people in the US, right? You just I don't know of anyone like that, or who is like or a central hub for sourcing, Med-X or Nautilus, etc., on the secondary market. So it's a little bit more challenging. You have to utilize eBay and places like that. So
I've done that my whole business life. Just pick and choose and find and contact people. But I really actually love those older double machines that I have. I really like those. Those are really, really nice.
I'd love to come to your place at some point and actually give it a go on some of those pieces.
That would be awesome. I really enjoy also, I have let me just kind of go back to, let's say that I get a new client in. So what I do, and you kind of mentioned going in my 3W approach to fitness. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of interview my client first, and I explain my system of fitness, which is the 3W approach. I call it weight training, walking, and watching your diet. So I just categorize things to simplify it. And that's one of my selling points. People are inundated with so much information. They just don't know what to do. And so when I bring them in, I sit down and explain that to them. And then I take them through a very general workout, maybe 5 to 7 exercises, and begin to teach them how to lift weights. Just explaining, hey, you're not just lifting weights you're not moving a weight from point A to point B, but you're actually learning to engage your muscle and to, fatigue your muscle on purpose. All those things that we generally teach to begin with. Then after I get to a certain point in getting them as strong as I can, I begin to throw variables in. I like to, create different, using the same exercises, but just using different protocols with that. I love zone training. I love high intensity training techniques. So I throw all those things in. I've had clients with me for 20 years. And so, you want to throw some variety in, make it challenging, yet still a level of fun that goes along with that. So that's how I approach my training. And then also, and then a lot of people, I don't know if everyone does this, but I enjoy the relationship of my business. So just getting to know clients, getting to talk to them, and just learn a lot about them as I go. So that relationship building is huge in the middle of what I do.
You mentioned your session length is often 15 to 17 minutes, which is very interesting to me because it's very, very brief. I don't know many high intensity training businesses who do under 30 minutes. So I'm assuming when people walk in for their session, it's straight to business. There's very little small talk in order to make that work, right? And what are they looking at, like 5 to 7 exercises per workout?
So let's say that I'll have let's say I'm just thinking a client on Saturday morning. I have to train clients tomorrow. So I have a guy, Nick, coming in. He's a police officer and he's gotten pretty strong. So we'll start him off on the Nautilus clamshell. And so for him, I might throw sobriety in. So let's say that I maybe take him at 40 pounds to begin with, have him do 10 reps, have him rest, add 10 pounds, have him do 10 more reps, just climb the ladder a little bit. So I start him soft and then end hard. In easy, out hard. I'll follow that up with a pull down. Recently with him, what I've been doing is I did a 30-second static, followed by 10 reps, followed by a 30-second static. And he wasn't able to complete that with an 80-pound.
Where do you hold the static? I'm curious.
I'm holding it in the contracted position, but not only am I holding it, I'm instructing him to actually pull. So I'm not just holding. So I guess it would, I guess definition of terms might be a bit different, but I'm actually having him contract and pull. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So
Yeah.
intentionally create fatigue and target a particular muscle group by, like if I'm doing the lat, I'm like, okay, here's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about the weight is on the back of your elbows and you're driving your elbows back. You're trying to isolate your lats or feel them. It's a very hard muscle for people to feel. So I'm trying to get them to isolate that and feel it. So I'll have them hold it for 30 seconds, which they'll feel. It won't be to failure, but they'll feel it. Then we go with 10 controlled reps, just kind of a standard 2-4. And they might get to a full 10. Last time, I think he got to 8 reps. And then I might have to help him in that static position again and try to do the same thing. And he may only get 20 seconds on the last one. I went to Ellington Darden's home years ago because I wanted to, as one of like bucket list thing. And so that's kind of how he trained me. I mean, we did like a 12-minute workout in his home with dumbbells. He had a multi-Nautilus machine. He had a Nautilus 2ST leg press. We just did a dumbbell workout and it left me lying on the floor. I learned a lot in that session. The intensity level was through the roof. And so, yeah, so that was really interesting.
And any other sort of nuggets of training wisdom from that session that you can talk about?
Yeah, he said, Steve, you're not very strong. I was like, wait a minute. So here's the one takeaway from that. The level of intensity was higher than anything that I had experienced before. And I've worked out hard, but for some reason he was able to take me to a level, and maybe it was because it was Ellington Darden, but he was relentless on the level of intensity and going to muscular failure and just squeezing everything out of you. And then another thing too that I remember is that I was grimacing a lot. And so one of his things was, you have to keep your face relaxed. And that was a lot of his instruction. And so I still have the workout sheet and he wrote it down. So I keep that around. He gave me the workout sheet. So it was a very short workout, but like I said, it was 12 minutes. I was lying on the floor and completely wiped out. So yeah, so that was an interesting thing. So anyway, back to I take him through those 2 exercises. Then what I might do is the next movement is the Nautilus double. It'll be a fly, a chest fly, followed by a chest press. And I might just do that standard. And then I'll go to a seated row. So if you notice, I do an ab kind of as a intro warm up. And then I'll go to my pull down, which is a pulling movement. Then I go to a pushing movement. Then I go to a pulling movement. So I kind of use antagonistic muscle groups and reduce the rest time between sets. Only, just to kind of give that, I still believe in that metabolic conditioning thing that Arthur Jones talked about. I think there's, that global metabolic conditioning. Have you read about that? Are you familiar with that?
Kind of. I'm familiar with the way I think Doug McGuff talks about it in Body by Science.
Same principle, same idea. So from there, I'll go to a seated row, and then the seated row, Brian Johnston had a a DVD years ago called Triangular Training. And so I'll use some of that in changing the hand grips and things like that. And once again, this client's been with me for a while. And then the next movement will be a Nautilus press. I have the double shoulder. What I've been doing with my clients recently is I actually spin them around and they go face in with the machine. And the reason for that is sometimes with certain clients, it causes that the way the machine is set up, it causes, like with your hands kind of far back, it causes a bit of shoulder pain for people and a little bit of cervical pain. So I move them around face in, and that seems to have solved that problem. From there, it'll be, does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, I understand. It's unusual. I've not heard it being used like that, but I understand the reason for it.
Yeah, and it works really, really well. I'll do a kind of a 2-10 on that, 2 seconds up, 10 seconds down. That seems to work really, really well with that. I'll follow that up with dumbbell curls. And then I might do some zone training with the dumbbell curls, making sure people are really focused and squeezing in at the top of each movement. And then and if they have a little bit left over, we'll take that through to muscular failure. And then based on how they're feeling at that point, I'll go possibly leg curl, leg press, leg extension, and if they have anything left, the leg blaster squat. So we're staying at about maybe 10 exercises in a minute, maybe a minute, a little bit over a minute for each one. So that's kind of how I go.
Okay, so in order to fit those in 15 to 17 minutes, you're employing rush factor, right? You're going from machine to machine as quickly as possible.
Very much so.
Right?
Yeah, very much.
Because otherwise, you just wouldn't be able to do that in that time, right?
Correct. And there are times though when I'll cut the number of exercises down. I'm not locked in or married to one particular thing, and so, but I do have a general protocol. When clients come in, I'll just tell them this: look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start you off on a general program, which is kind of like buying a suit off the rack. But what we're going to do is we're going to individualize that program, which is kind of tailoring the suit to fit you. And so some people may need a little bit longer. Some people can't go as long. So I just play it. I do train people hard, though. That is the number one thing. We do train people hard.
I guess you got me thinking, like, if you're in a pinch, let's say a client's late or for whatever reason, you're just running behind schedule. I just think it's really good to focus on the big three, right?
Correct.
Big chest press movement, pull down or seated row, and then a leg press. And you're going to get like 80% of the benefits, if you're caught in a pinch,
Absolutely.
Do you sometimes find yourself doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I'll do that even if people are not behind. John Little had that minimalist workout. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And I like what he did there. And so he'll go up and down the ladder. That's a real, just one set of leg presses like that is brutal. And so, sometimes I'll just take people, through that particular protocol. And most of the clients that I'm dealing, here's my selling point. The number one anti-aging thing that you can do is strength training. People will come in, and I remember I had one of my chiropractor, he sent his father years ago when he was alive, he sent his father to me, and his dad was struggling with his balance. His name was Charlie. He said, Steve, I'm losing my balance. I said, Charlie, you've lost your strength. I said, when you get your strength back, your balance will come back. And so, you'll see a lot of people using the wobble boards and all those things for balance. And I don't particularly use them. If people want to use them, I think that's great. That's fine. But for me, it's specific. Basically, what you do with that is you get good at the wobble board. It doesn't have anything, I mean, and I mean no disrespect.
Fun, right? But that's probably about it.
Yeah. And so, it doesn't make you walk better. Anyway, I trained Charlie for strength. He got stronger. And then he came in with a newspaper article. There was a guy asked the doctor, and it was, a newspaper article from, it was just an older doctor. So he brought me a newspaper article, and he said, Steve, listen, he goes, look, you were right. Look at what the doctor said. He said, when you lose your balance, you're losing your strength. And he goes, and I've noticed that I've got my strength now and my balance is coming back. And I said, Charlie, that's awesome. I didn't need ask the doctor to validate what I'm telling you, but it really does work. And so the number one thing is strength training. So my clients, every single one of them, even athletes, it's like, here's what we're going to do. We are going to get you stronger. I've been training my son since he was 5 years old, and he is a high-level jiu-jitsu guy, and he's very, very strong, and he still adheres to high-intensity training with the way that he trains, though he can only train once every 8 or 9 days. And so we still do a very hard, high-intensity workout, and his workout, it's still 15 or so minutes. It works like a charm for him.
Awesome. Well, look, thank you for that. I think that was a really complete profile of the services you offer. So I think that's something I want to do with every guest. And I think this is really interesting to our colleagues. So let's talk about 2020. So you sent me a message about this and found it really interesting. And that's what kind of made me think, you know what, we need to do a podcast about this. So do you want to just kick off? You know, we've come to March 2020. The shit's hit the fan.
Yeah.
What happened? Talk to me.
Okay, so here's what happens. So we had moved our gym. I had moved out of the hood, and I once again into a better area. And man, it was really good. In the back, it's right next door to where I live. We rented from a friend of mine. He's got a dentist office. So we're right next door. Have a jiu-jitsu school in the back, which is doing really, really well. Have my personal training place in the front, and so it's getting to the point to where you can't. I mean, I changed my front yard and rocked it because parking becomes an issue. So we're killing it. We're doing really, really well. We'd been there for about 4 years or so. And so, so talk to the dentist. I'm like, look, he's like, man, we got to do something because of the parking issue. I go, look, I get it. And so we started looking for another place. We're looking to rent. We're trying to figure it out. And, we can't find anything, and we want to rent something. We want to stay local because we've built up a really good following in our area. So we look everywhere. We can't find anything, but there was a place for sale. And man, I'm just wrestling with it. And my son wanted us to buy it, but I've been really, really, really conservative, and I'm really careful with my money, and always had a pretty good amount in the bank as a cushion, just in case of a tough time. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this risk, and we're gonna go for it. And so we buy this building, we work our butts off, we rehab it, we buy new mats, we move all the gym equipment, which, man, what a challenge. You want to talk about a difficult thing to do. Move a Nautilus double chest press. It weighs about 1 billion pounds. It was challenging, but we got it all finished, and we're running. And Lawrence, we are on the verge of a huge business breakthrough. I mean, it's really, really hopping my business. We're doing I want to think we're at 150 clients a week. So appointments a week. So we're really, really, I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but we're doing really, really well.
What do you charge per session?
I charge 30 per session, 30 for 15 minutes. So it's, if you're getting 4 in an hour, we're at 120 an hour is kind of how we go about that. And
fantastic.
that is kind of the sweet spot for us in our area. That's kind of, I've tried a lot of different pricing, but that seems to be a legitimate price point for us. So then we're up and running. 3 weeks later, everything closes. And it was like, I go from everything to zero. I mean, we're closed. I have two, I have 3 trainers at the time. And so I also have another location in St. Louis at another business. It's been one that I've had for years, but everything closes down. And so, but I was able to keep the St. Louis one open, but it's not a huge money maker. It's just something I've been doing for years. So I go from all these appointments to zero, and I'm like clueless. We hadn't prepped for any of this. So our income drops incredibly. And so then I just started watching what you guys were doing. I'm listening to Luke, and so I'm going virtual. I'm trying to figure this out. So my trainers, weren't down with virtual. They didn't know anything about it. So I started doing virtual appointments, just reaching out one person at a time. And I ended up doing I think I was doing about 50. I was doing this 50 virtual appointments a week. But the problem was I run another business as well. So the problem was I was really, really busy. So I'm carrying this load.
What's your other business?
I run a church also.
Oh, right.
So, I mean, I guess, it's a non-for-profit, but it's still a business. And so I'm a pastor of a church. And so I got a lot going on. And so that shut down as well. So, yeah, everything shut down, but it caused way more work on my end to keep everything going. When things were going smooth, they were, running well, but they closed churches down. They closed and I'm in Illinois. So it was, they really shut, everything down. So I made it through, but my income just, it just really fell through the floor. So we made it through that. And before that, I'm running Facebook ads. I'm doing all these things that are working. And then I go to nothing. And then Facebook totally changed because everyone is running ads online then, are giving away free workouts. And so everything that you had before, nothing was working. So I was struggling. It was very, very difficult. I don't know if a lot of people talk about this, but the emotional aspect of that kind of loss is devastating for people. And people don't want to talk about the depression and the things that people go through.
Yeah.
It is.
I don't know if you saw this, but are you familiar with Bo Rayleigh?
I am. Yes, I saw a post from him. Yes.
Oh, you saw that? Okay, so I
yesterday.
I want to say I read that yesterday. Yeah, and he was just so transparent about just the struggle and the amount of humiliation he felt. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but he was like, "Look, I've spent years building this business. Suddenly, it's gone, and now I have to adapt." And I'm not sure if they went virtual, but he implied they did, but didn't say it explicitly. But yeah, so I've seen a few people actually in our community be that vulnerable, but it's just good to hear you talk about it as well.
Yeah, no, Bo is such a good guy. They used to have the HIT conferences in Indiana. I would just drive there by myself, and that was just such a great time. That was really, really fun. But yeah, and so here I am struggling with this. You're dealing with the depression aspect of it. You're like, oh my gosh, I worked my whole life, and then I put my savings into this thing, and boom. So we're wrestling with this whole thing, and as I said, I'm running a church, so I'm praying, brother. I'm pulling out all the stops there, but man, and obviously, I'm still in the business. We made it through, but it was definitely a challenge, and I try to stay positive, and just kind of keep moving forward with things. But boy, that was just a challenging time, and it strips you a lot of what you're dealing with. And so fortunately I had the gym. It was in bike riding distance, so I could go work out, which helps you mentally as well. So there were some things there, but virtual was my life force at the time. And to be honest with you, virtual is not my favorite thing. I think we talked about this a bit before, that you really enjoy it. It's okay, but it's not my favorite thing. I like the equipment and things like that. And so, but I still do, but I still have a lot of virtual clients. So I still do that. So moving forward from there, it was a slow process. So I think I'm down about 30% on my clients. And so generally, in the business that we bought, I have 2 trainers that work with me, but man, we've cut a lot of hours from them, unfortunately, but they're still with me. And then, so I'm working a couple of days a week now. And here's kind of where I'm at with it. I had a real good Facebook marketing campaign that I used. It was very, very expensive, but it worked. And so I was telling my wife, I said, it was kind of like I was fishing in the ocean with a net, and I would throw the net out and there would be a bunch of fish that came in, and I would just sort through and pick out the fish that were the best out of the bunch. But now I'm fishing with a cane pole. And so I'm just doing, and I'm back to that. I'm back to where I started the business. And that is as simple as one-to-one conversations with people. And this is how I started my business years ago, even back to the old business card, handing out the old business card. And I honestly have built a pretty good clientele personally, just by doing that. So I'm coming back slow but sure. But it's a grind. It's just a grind. I'm working more than I did before. And, like I said, as I got older, I wanted to work a bit less, but things don't always work out the way you want them. And so you adapt and enjoy. That's what you do, because that's the hand that you're given.
I just love your attitude. I just think this is so inspiring, and I'm so excited for people to listen to you. Can you just elaborate on, you said you're going back to basics, business cards. How are you actually doing that? Are you meeting people, giving out cards? Because it's very difficult, obviously, to meet physically. Yeah.
So it is, okay. So like there's a lot of things that like you're locked down on still in certain areas. And some people follow those particular things, and other people, they, how it goes. So so what I do is, I just think here's what I think it is. I believe in what I do completely. I live it. I love what I do. I walk 30 minutes a day. I lift weights. I love lifting weights. I'm a, generally low carb diet guy. So intermittent faster. Been doing that for years. Wrote a book about it. So I have a bunch of stuff that I do, but Lawrence, I just don't think, I don't think you could be around me and not want to do some of this. I don't want to sound arrogant, but when I'm around people,
it's contagious, right?
It's just what I do. And so, and there's just no way that you can be around me and we don't have that conversation, like, okay, what do you think about this? And so, it's like, okay, so I'll just talk about like diet, for example. A lot of times with people, I'll get all these questions like, like I had a guy tell me that he was at the beginning of the year, really a good guy, police officer's name is Jeff. He said, Steve, I'm going to do the 75-day challenge. I'm like, okay, Jeff, what is the 75-day challenge? And he's like, I'm going to eat clean and then I'm going to work out twice a day for 75 days. And I said, Jeff, let me tell you something. No, you're not. It's not going to work. You're not going to work out twice a day and be able to, you're not get hurt. I mean, it's just going to overworry. It's just not going to work with that. So then I'm like, so then we begin the conversation, hey, you need to lose weight. So let's look at it from this perspective. Start implementing intermittent fasting into your diet. Start going low carb. I like to watch, Jason Fung. Are you familiar with Dr. Jason Fung?
Yeah, I've been with him,
Yeah, he's good. He makes a lot of sense. I don't agree with everything that he says, which a lot of times he's like insulin is the only factor in controlling weight. And I think that when you look at those types of things, and this is kind of the conversation I have with Jeff, by the way, so I'm kind of leading into that. But when you look at those kind of things, what Fung says is, look, don't count calories because eventually your BMR begins to decline. Then you have to eat less food. Are you familiar with that argument?
I am, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So he's saying just, make sure that you control insulin levels. So that's the conversation I have with Jeff, which is enlightening to him. He's like, that really does make sense. And he is, he needs to lose weight and he's a bit overweight. Super nice guy though. And so that's where I start him, which leads in to Jeff, even if you saw me once per week for a personal training session, you would get way more benefit by that one session per week and treating your body kindly rather than beating yourself up twice a day for 75 days and setting yourself up for failure. And then, I'll take him from there to that, just the intermittent fasting and reduce carbohydrate dieting and increasing fat, becoming a fat burner. And then people will stall out. Then we have to look at calories from there. And so then we begin to, but once again, it's just the gentle process that I take people through and begin to show them, here's what works, here's what doesn't. Be kind to your body. Don't set yourself up for failure and move forward. So it's just creating those conversations that are the key. And those conversations happen a lot. And then keeping yourself in shape also, that's a big, big factor as well.
I'm just curious, are you being more proactive with your virtual clients in asking for referrals as well? You found yourself doing that?
I'm not at this point simply because I don't want a lot more virtuals. I'm just trying to rebuild my in-home. Having the virtuals are good and they're there, but it's just not something that I super enjoy. It's good to do, and so I have some people who I'll train once a week virtually and then once a week in the gym. And so that's kind of how I'm approaching that at this point. And so that's, kind of what we're looking at, right now. But Lawrence, here's what I'm doing now also. I am experimenting now because I generally have a group of clients that have been with me for years and they love what we do. And that's our base clients. Then we have about 30% who are turnovers. And that's the 30% that we've kind of lost because you lose those, but you're not getting that new 30% in through different ways of advertising and relation, because everybody is afraid of this, this virus. And so even, they don't want to come in. And so I'm doing some different stuff that I'm kind of excited about.
Can you share, or is it top secret?
Absolutely. So I'm just, wait for you to ask. So here's what we've done. I got a web guy that helps me a lot. And so we went back to trying to run some Facebook ads. Super unsuccessful, just not working. So we went back to the business model of the emails and nurturing the clients and following kind of what Hannah had said on your site, which is really great. Your site has been super helpful for me.
Thank you.
And so, it really has.
Would that be Hannah just to elaborate, would that be, you're referring to Hit Business Membership, Hannah's point on generating leads with lead magnets and ebooks? Mm-hmm. Is that what you're getting at? Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was a great bit of content from her. Yeah.
Yes. It was super helpful. And we've done that. I've written a book. I did the, random ramblings of a 59-year-old wannabe bodybuilder. So, and I got myself in real good shape and I wrote an ebook about that. So we've used that as kind of a lead magnet. I got several that I've written with that. So those have been the nurturing process, and we are getting some clients through there. Not as many as I'd like, but we're building that up a bit. But yesterday I did a webinar and I got some high level video stuff and audio stuff. And we set it up in my gym and I did a live webinar, and that produced maybe 7 leads. What we did was we did a very general webinar to test it out. And that is, and once again, I'm going back to my 3W approach to fitness. That's my webinar. And it was really, really, really good, if I have to say so myself. It's fun to do. And it produced a lot of leads for me. So now we're going to begin to narrow that down, and we're going to figure out what is the best way to utilize this. Even now, I also have something that we've done. My son and I filmed an in-home workout. I have a 6-week, a 12-week, and a 24-week filmed workout that people can follow along. So that might be something that we promote through the webinars. What I did with yesterday's webinar was just promoted a free introductory workout, which I got about, like I said, I got several, I think it was 6 or 7. Some of them were virtual, but some of them are in-house. So that was a super positive. And what I'm doing is I'm experimenting. Let's see what works. Let's see what doesn't work. This worked, this didn't. Let's try this. So I failed a lot in this, and I failed a lot my whole business career. But every now and then I come up with something that is a nugget of gold, and it works. Does that make sense?
It does. Let me just clarify a few things. So you're advertising the webinar on Facebook, right? And that's the entry. And then I think I've seen the video actually on one of your courses on your site where you talk about the 3W approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
So did you record a new webinar then, or did you use that one I see on the website? Or is that the new one perhaps?
You know, I don't know which one you're talking about. I talk about the 3. That's kind of my go-to is my 3W approach. The webinar is was it about 35 minutes long, the one that you've seen?
Probably shorter than that. I'm just thinking if we could link to something, if it's available on your website so that listeners could actually see your webinar. Is that possible, or is it?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'll get my web guy to send you anything that helps people. But once again, honestly, I'm not good at a lot of things, but I'm good at that. I love to get up and do it. I've been doing that same, I called it a seminar. Now it's a webinar. That's how I've been getting clients. I would go to businesses and I'm like, here's my 3W approach. I take everything that's out there and narrow it down for you to show you how to create a lifestyle of fitness that you can keep up for the rest of your life. And I just tell people to do exactly what I tell you, you will get results. And so I go through that, the 3W approach: weight training, walking, watching your diet. And then what I do from there is show the benefits of each one of those particular things and how we go about it. And then I leave enough out there to where it still allows people to ask me questions, so that I can answer those particular questions, in the middle of it and more personalize it. But I'm like, I talk to my web guy, I'm like, I am super excited about that. This is a direction that I definitely want to go. I think that the opportunity is huge if I can get it right. So if I can narrow it down to a target audience, it may take some investment in advertising the webinar to get enough people to sign up for it to kind of go from there. But we're talking about which way to go with that. So that I'm super excited about that.
That's awesome, and I'm really excited to hear how that all goes. And please report back to me to tell me how it's all going. I'm sure you will. Just on that, I've got a few questions about the online stuff. And actually, before I ask you that, I wrote an email today, which is going out to all the members, Hit Business Membership tonight. And I just put some final thoughts at the bottom of the email about the attitude I think we need to have going into 2021. I think we have to have a hope for the best, but plan for the worst approach where we don't know. I mean, it doesn't sound very positive in terms of the speed of the vaccine rollout, right? Consumer fear is still very high. That's at least my understanding based on someone who's not in the US, but hearing from your countrymen and women. But it's very similar in Ireland and the UK and much of Europe. And what I've kind of been saying is we have to go into 2021 hoping that it's going to be much better, but planning like it's going to be just the same as 2020, if not worse. And that's why I think we need to think about what are we going to do to generate revenue? How are we going to adapt and respond to further lockdowns and restrictions, right? And I think that we have to be open to the idea of doing something online. Now you're taking that and running with it like completely, which is so inspiring. I mean, you're not only doing virtuals, which you didn't really want to do, or I should rephrase, don't enjoy as much as the in-studio stuff. But you're also doing courses and you have an ebook and webinars. And it's just so inspiring, especially from someone who, like you said, this is not something that you feel is it fair for me to say that you don't think you have much in the way of digital skills, but you are obviously a good public speaker? That's evident. But you collaborate with this web guy perfectly, right? In terms of marrying those two. Right.
Totally fair to say. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't want
to go ahead.
Yeah. No, you go Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think that's really important because there's a lot of your colleagues, a lot of our colleagues in the industry who don't have those skills, who just default to, well, I don't know how to do that. It's too complicated. So to hear someone like you say, well, actually, you need to find someone who can help you with the digital aspect, but it's really doable and you can do it. And obviously, there's a lot of reasons why people are apprehensive about doing virtual. And some of that, I think, is founded, but I think the majority of it is just stubbornness, if I'm honest. And I think actually, if you want to save your business and generate revenue, really, you need to be offering that right now going into 2021. Don't wait, start doing it now, and just bulletproof your business, make yourself resilient, right? Or do what you're doing in terms of the online courses. So I was going to ask you a bit more about that. In terms of what are you seeing in terms of conversions? Can you talk about that? Because some of your courses are, they're pretty big ticket, right? They're a few $100s or almost $1,000 in some cases. So what are you seeing there in terms of conversions? Can you comment on that at all?
Absolutely. So first, here's my first thing. What you said about going into 2021, people are like, oh, 2020 was the worst year of my life. And, that kind of, you hear that all the time, right? You know what, man? Look, here's the thing, man. I'm alive. Both of my parents died at 49. My mom died on Christmas morning in 1988. Listen, every day for me, and I'll just kind of quick overview with that. She died in my arms. Christmas morning, 1988. And the last thing she said was, serve Jesus, tell your brother to serve Jesus. Okay. So, it's a really cool thing if you think about it, because at the time I wasn't, and, I don't want to, go over too much with that, but here's what I will tell you. I'm going to make it. I'm going to make my business. I'm going to make it. I'll figure it out. So that's my attitude. I'm going to figure this out. This is what I do. This is who I am. So I'm going to figure it out. No matter what happens, I'm going to figure out a way. I'm going to make it happen. And that's my number one thing. I don't know how, but I'm going to figure it out. So, and then what I also do is I also make sure, like, I love doing that webinar. So that if you do stuff you love, like if you find something that may take a little while, to find what you love, and I don't mind the online, the virtual, but I love doing the webinars. And then what I love to do, I love pointing people to those courses, because those really do work. I have a ton of people, and I have, I did really, really well with those courses. And I converted, we did a lot of conversions with that. I don't have the exact number. And not only that worked for people. Those courses, they really, really work. Yeah. And so literally a 78-year-old lady did it, and she had great results. I have, numbers of people who love those courses. So yeah, that has been and that might be something that I go after. That might be where I take my webinar to those courses. So we're going to figure that out. The second thing is, like you said, is I enjoy public speaking, and it's fun. That's fun for me. It gets me excited. I love doing that. And so I find things that I enjoy doing. And I've done those seminars for years where I'll stand up for 2 hours in front of people, and there'll be hundreds of people, and I'll answer any question that they have on fitness, because I run it through the framework of my 3W approach, if that makes sense. I have a basic framework, and I can run any question through that. And it simplifies the process. So doing those for me is super fun. I'm going to keep you posted on how that works, because in my mind, I'm thinking this really could work. This really could work. And so having the web guy, that has been super duper helpful. And the guy that I have is incredibly good. So I'll just go back to say this. Remember I said I prayed? And so sometimes when you pray, you get coincidences that happen. And so that guy's a godsend for me. So, he has been super helpful. And so he's a really good guy. He's one of my clients. And so that has been super helpful for me. And he is really, really, he's a genius. He's really smart with this stuff. And so we're doing the webinar, and then he's talking about the analytics. And I don't even know what all that, don't want to know with it. I'm focused on my thing. So he's telling me the analytics, the number of visits we have, how that's working. So, that might be someone, you have to hire people to do that too. If you can get people to do that, it's super duper helpful. But we're going to run with that. We're going to see how far we can go. We're going to invest some money in it. And if that is a good turnover, I'm going to ride that wave as long as I can while still doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. You make me think of a principle I learned from one of my mentors, which is who, not how. When you're thinking about a task, like a lot of us default to how do I do this? And it's like, no, we should be thinking about who can do this, who already has the skills. Obviously, that means that you're going to have to typically invest some money or trade some services perhaps, but it's probably going to save you so much more time, energy, and money in the future, especially if you can take that opportunity cost, take that time and be doing other things with it that generate income, and have someone do the thing that you don't know how to do. It just makes a lot more sense in a lot of cases. And I always ask that question whenever I'm taking on a new project. I'm thinking, okay, if I do this, it's going to take me 20 hours, let's say, but I could just pay this company to do it and they'll do it better than me, faster, and then I can allocate that time to something else. So I think that's an important principle you highlight. So I know that as who, not how, and that's just stuck in my brain because it's easy to remember.
Yeah, no,
absolutely.
Sense,
right?
Makes perfect sense, because for me, it's just knowing what I'm good at and what I'm not. And I'm not good at any of it. I'm really good at training clients. I'm really good at public speaking, relating to people in that particular way. The other stuff drains my battery. And so I don't do things. I just try to avoid those things. I mean, I have to do like my weekly accounting stuff, which is a total battery drainer for me. So it's one of my worst things. Like, I got to do QuickBooks. I don't like that. It's not fun. It's just not my niche. And so I'm just not good at it. So, but it's got to be done. There's sort of obviously things that you have to do, but surrounding yourself with people who are, like when I went to, when I had to change the church to online only, because that's what we did, I was able to find a group of people who did video, who did sound, it was really amazing what we were able to pull off from there. And we hit the ground running with that. So, the business has been a little bit slower in that transition, but what, I'm gaining some traction. I feel like, we made it through that valley, and we're slowly coming back. And so, and it's possible, and I'll have to look at this, but it's possible that we might have shown maybe just a little bitty profit for the year. It's very, very possible. I have to look at it. I know, yeah, we were down for a while, but we're trying to make a comeback with that. Yeah, so it's possible that we did okay.
Just for a lot of businesses in our sector, it's like just being in business still is a huge win after that, right? So to be registering at a small profit is just great news, isn't it? Really.
No, I just saw where a couple of local YMCAs closed, and so you just I'll drive down the road and I'll see these restaurants that are closed, and man, it just for me as a business owner, I just think about those business people and who and I had to put out some ads because I lost a trainer in St. Louis, and I put out an ad on Indeed, and I had so many people respond to that personal trainer ad, because and it was heartbreaking to read some of the resumes, because people like, I owned my own business, and so I feel for people in the in the middle of that. It's really a challenge. And so, like you said, just being in business is, it's good. It's good at this point. So
I have a real soft spot for the kind of romantic nature of like independent small business with lots of character and family history. And where I live in Galway in Ireland, and there's tons of that, or there at least was tons of that, right? In the local town, in the city, so many family-owned businesses that are so proud of what they do, and really focus on having a great product and service. And to see a lot of those going out of business during this time is really heartbreaking, So yeah, it's difficult, it's tough. So I can appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I see that. And then like the depression, and man, like I said, I deal with a lot of people. And I have people in, the church setting who will come in and they're dealing with depression and, suicidal thoughts. And, we've had, several of those things. And sometimes you think about the lockdowns and you think, man, is this worse than the virus itself? I'm not discounting the virus, but those things are, really, really challenging for a lot of people. And it's so I always, kind of when I'm talking to people, like, look, obviously this business is a big part of our lives. It's what we do. It's how we make a living. But it's not life itself. There are other aspects of life. And so trying to sort through that depression and the things that go along are totally, you got to figure out how to deal with that. Like for me, I love to still train jujitsu. I love to lift weights. That helps me. If I didn't have those things, that would challenge me a lot. I would struggle with that in the mental way, because you do fall through those, like you're looking at the numbers not being what they used to be. It becomes a big issue there.
Yeah, you're right. It's I think a lot of people can relate to you on that in terms of finding more focus and peace in their workout routines this year, right? I've been like that. I know Luke has. I know Luke said on multiple occasions that he has been more excited and more motivated for his workouts in 2020 than he's ever been. I just think that's interesting, right?
Yeah, no, this year was the best. Every year I do, every year since I've been a bodybuilder. I was a bodybuilder in 1987, 86 it started. Every year I do a lean out, I'm like, okay, I always act like I'm competing again. And I just generally do it privately. Well, this year I did it publicly on my, I made it public. Hey, who wants to join me in this? And I got in really good shape because it was like you're focused on, right? You're focused a bit different. So it was good in that respect. But yeah, you've got to have those things that keep you happy and that you enjoy, and the relationships and, those types of things are really important. And once again, just shout out to your business and what Luke does on your business. Man, I just love that. I really enjoy everything you do. So it's been a real blessing for me.
Thank you for that. And obviously I'm very fortunate to be able to do so much with Luke, and we collaborate so much, and I just learn so much every time we speak. And, we've got so much booked in the future too, so much booked in January. So I'm just so excited to do more content and more collaborations. I'm just looking through to make sure we've covered off some of the key things I wanted to talk to you about. I think obviously you've given a kind of a summary of the challenges of 2020, and you talked about what you did to overcome that, and really pleased to hear that things are getting better and more positive. But it's also sobering to hear that you kind of agree with me in terms of how you're thinking about going into 2021, preparing for whatever is thrown at you, so to speak. And being prepared to be able to offer both offline and online services. Here's one of the things I was going to ask you is, you might not know this, but one of the things I really love about your website, and we'll put your link to your website in the show notes, because I think it's a really good resource for people to learn how they can add online services to their business. But when you go to your online courses, it's great. You can actually see like the course breakdown, and you have the enroll button, but then you have like the different steps. Do you happen to know what your web guy uses for that at all in terms of the software?
Yeah, I could definitely find out for you, because I don't have a clue. But I'll find out. I'll get you all that information, and I'll send him a text right now and get all that information. I'll get links for you. He'll have it.
Yeah, that'd be great for the show notes. But I love that you don't know that. That actually I just think that's great, because again, it comes back to our point about you don't have to know all this stuff. You don't have to be technical. I mean, I run an online business. Well, I have an offline business now, but for the longest time, I've had an online business. And say the longest time, certainly not as long as you. And I am actually not that technical. I mean, Luke will tell you, because he's been on the podcast with me so much, that I am just a nightmare with Zoom. And I'm just actually not really that technical. I've kind of self-taught the things I had to learn, but I outsource as much as I can afford to, because it just makes more sense to bring in people that have the expertise and that interest, to your point, right? Like, just a lot of this stuff I'm just not interested in. I just want the end result, right? So
Yeah, I'll make the courses. I like doing that, but you got to put them up for me because I don't even know I don't even know the language. It's a total different language for me. So, and then going back to what you said about 2021, here's the way I think about it. Like everybody, just see a lot of people talking about, man, just putting 2020 behind us, like I said before. But, nothing's changed other than it's a different day. You know what I'm saying? It's a different year in a calendar, but nothing's really changed at this point, and we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how are the vaccines going to work? Are they going to work? What are the side effects? How are you going to approach that? There's so many questions that still, need to be answered in the middle of this, and so, I'm going to stay focused and positive and keep experimenting on what I'm going to find and see what works, and then I'm going to ride that wave. I know in a lot of business they'll say, I don't know if you've ever had to do this, but they'll like, what is your 6-month plan? What is your 1-year plan? Your 5-year plan? All that kind of stuff. Have you read through that?
Yeah, I do all that stuff, but I have an element of flexibility within it.
Yeah, I can't do it. I'm like, I cannot do it. I can't think like that. It's like, okay, yeah, I just can't narrow that down. So that's always been a problem for me. So finally I said, because I'll get a lot of pressure from people. What's the 5-year plan for the church? I don't know, man. I'm just showing up Sunday. That's what I'm going to do. So, that's the way, like in my business, here's what I can tell you. I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm going to show up. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to stay focused on what I'm good at, how I approach this. I'm going to teach. And I have people who are still getting fantastic results. I have 2 sisters that come. They're the virtual and the in-house, 39 and 41 pounds down. The goal is 100 pounds. I did a seminar in February. They signed up, maybe started kicking it up in June. So, and we're just keeping accountable, and the accountability is simple, of just asking the question, how are you doing today? I have my private Facebook site that I drive all my people to, post a lot of stuff in there, keep the engagement going. So, I'll give you all that info if that's helpful for people.
Oh yeah, please do send me all the links, and I'll ping you an email after this, Steve, with like a reminder and anything, so I don't expect you to remember everything. I guess there's one last thing I want to add to this conversation, and then I'll get your details and we'll sort of start wrapping up. But I think, I've been saying a lot during 2020 that a hit studio is a really good business to be in. And I still very strongly believe that, based on obviously the effectiveness of the training, which we all know and love, and the efficiency and the safety, but also the business model, the privacy, the cleanliness, I guess the lack of frequency, you're not having to show up like every day in a big box kind of facility. God, there's probably so much more. Boosting immunity with the exercise, obviously a big topic right now. So I think the business model is very well suited to the kind of medium, longer term picture. But that doesn't mean that we should be blind to the risks that are inherent in what's happening in 2021 and be ready for those. But I still feel very optimistic about our boutique industry in the medium, long term. I guess if I'm, honestly, I would have hoped that we would have recovered sooner. I think we all hoped that, and we all wanted to believe that. I don't know about you, but I didn't think this was going to last this whole year at all.
I know. Yeah, I totally agree. And I agree with you too on our business model. Our business model is good. It really is. It really works. And it is safe. I mean, I had someone donate to me a sprayer. It's like a backpack sprayer that I could spray my gym down in the middle of all this stuff. So, but like you said, also, man, I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea. We just don't know. There's, political unrest. There's, the COVID unrest. There's all kinds of things that go on. So they may lock us down again. I'm not sure how that's going to play out. So I don't know. I'm just looking at this from the one day at a time perspective, and with the attitude of, we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna make it. You're gonna figure it out one way or another. If I have to go back to, training people in the garage, if I have to do all the work, I'm still gonna make it. So that's kind of my attitude in the middle of it. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question a bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's, and I have 100% confidence you will make it through and you will do really well because you've got the attitude. And it's that old cliche where there's a will, there's a way, but it's,
Yes.
or what is the other saying? If a man can bear, I can't remember. I'm not going to butcher it if I try, but you get the gist. It's just the attitude and the mindset, I think is everything. And with that, you just find the solution to the problem, right?
Yes, absolutely. One time I was competing in the Pan Ams in 2012, and I had 3 tough matches, and I went with a guy who's a tough wrestler, and he had finished his first guy in 1 minute. He got a second round by, and I had him in the finals. And he had me in this position, Lawrence, and he was real near choking me. And in my mind flashed this thing where it was like, I could just quit right now. And then I had the second thought, I would die before I would quit. And so I fought out. I ended up losing the match, but I didn't quit. And so I think that's the best way to go about it. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm in a bad. No, heck no. I fought through it. I lost the decision,
Okay.
But I always say the guys that I lose to, they were taking PEDs anyway. So,
okay.
Well,
but obviously if they were being, and just on that, for anyone that doesn't know, Steve sent me a few photos and he just looks incredible. I mean, you are in just excellent shape.
Thanks, man.
It's impressive. It's inspiring, actually.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, man. And
so I just wanted to mention, I guess, before we just wrap up and get some of your details, a lot of what we've spoken about today is about virtual training. If you're listening to this and you need some help with building a virtual training business, maybe as a standalone business, maybe you don't have a studio, or maybe you have a studio in play and you want an adjunct. And like we've been saying, on a way to future-proof your business, we have a course inside Hit Business Membership called How to Build a Profitable Virtual Training Business. And it's got all the kind of ingredients there for showing you how to do that. And I've collaborated with people like Hannah and Luke at Discover Strength, and Owen at Live Oak, and Skylar Tanner, who most people will probably know, and to bring you the best content for that course. And obviously, there's lots of other content in the membership as well, and a community element, and much more. And so if you're interested in that, please go to highintensitybusiness.com/membership. Steve, this has been so much fun, and I'm really glad we made this happen. What's the best way for listeners to find out more about you?
Just go to my website, www.fitnessandmore.net. Send me email through there, steve@fitnessandmore.net. And so all my info is there, and obviously on Facebook as well. You're a man who is obviously got a very positive mindset. And I imagine you're full of just excellent stories, which you've already shared on this, and one-liners to leave the listeners with something to think about. Do you have any parting thoughts, I guess, as we start 2021? There's a lot of unknowns. Anything you want to say to the audience to get them thinking the right way towards it? Sure, absolutely. Okay, so is it okay to share a Bible verse?
Go for it.
Okay, there's one in Jeremiah. This guy named Jeremiah is going through a real tough time. The group of people that he's writing to they're in captivity. They're locked down. They're under a real regime that is oppressing them. And then here's what he writes to the people. He says, I know the plans that I have for you, plans to prosper you and plans to give you a hope and a future. So that's what I would leave people with. I believe wholly in the providence of God in our lives, and the fact that that God does have a plan for each and every person, and that plan is a good plan.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. It's very inspiring. I appreciate it. And for everyone listening, to find the blog post for this episode and to download a PDF to give you 10 ways to generate more clients for your HIT business, please go to highintensitybusiness.com, search for episode 302. And until next time, thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Lawrence. It was awesome.